Glenn A. Larson's Battlestar Galactica was one of the most hyped shows of the 1978 television season. Originally envisioned as a miniseries, ABC quickly decided to switch the program to become a weekly series, which caused a scramble to write scripts, build additional sets, and plan storylines for a long-term run. The show was plagued by production problems and was one of the most expensive shows on television, with a per-episode budget more than twice what similar shows cost at the time. The show started with strong ratings against its main competition, a variety show hosted by Mary Tyler Moore, but once CBS moved All in the Family back into its 8 p.m. Sunday slot against Galactica, the numbers slipped. They were still pretty good, but not quite what ABC wanted. In the end, looking at the numbers and the expenses, ABC couldn't justify renewing the show. And then, things got interesting. First, a letter-writing campaign from fans swamped ABC. Enough letters for the network to consider bringing Galactica back as a 2-hour movie of the week to finally bring its storyline to a proper end. The network decided to commission the telemovie about a month after the original decision to cancel the series. Second, ABC's strategy for Sunday nights in the new season completely fell apart. Trying to go head-to-head against CBS's comedies, ABC planned a night entirely of family-friendly comedies, starting off with a Happy Days spinoff, but that's another story, and anchored by top 5 hit Mork and Mindy. To everyone's surprise, especially ABC, Mork and Mindy's numbers against All in the Family reboot Archie Bunker's Place were even lower than Galactica had been pulling in. ABC was forced to reevaluate their plans. The seeds had been planted for Galactica to make a comeback. ABC changed their order for a 2-hour Galactica movie to a 3-hour miniseries, which they would schedule over 3 Sunday nights. They would use reaction to this to judge whether or not a new series could actually fly. Creator Glenn A. Larson and producer Donald Bellisario got to work planning the new miniseries. The idea was to jump 5 years ahead in the show's timeline, which would let them write out some of the supporting cast in an effort to save costs. Bellisario came up with a storyline that would have Galactica arrive at Earth in the modern day and find it incapable of defending itself against a Cylon threat. This would lead original series enemy Gaius Baltar, now apparently reformed somehow, to go back in time to speed up humanity's technological advancement. Fearing damage to the timeline, Apollo and Starbuck would follow him into the past to prevent him from interfering. If the show ended up going to series, each week would see Apollo and Starbuck chasing Baltar to a different point in Earth history, striving to put right what he made wrong. But things didn't go as planned. First, Dirk Benedict, who played Starbuck, was committed to other projects and wasn't available to shoot the pilot. Then Richard Hatch, who had played Apollo, read the pilot script and turned it down, not liking the new direction or the loss of so many original characters. Bellisario went back to the drawing board. The new plan would be to jump a full 30 years ahead of where the original Galactica had left off. Apollo's adopted son Boxy would grow up to become Captain Troy, a replacement for Apollo in the original story plan. Starbuck was replaced by a new character known as Lieutenant Dylan, and instead of Baltar, a new antagonist known as Xavier would be the one tampering with history. Adam 12 star Kent McCord signed on to play Troy. Actor Barry Van Dyke, the son of Dick Van Dyke, took on the part of Dylan, and actor Richard Lynch was hired as Xavier. Another new character was added to the mix in the form of Dr. Z, a mutant genius born during Galactica's journey who would become an advisor to Adama and the rest of the fleet. To play Dr. Z, the producers cast Robbie Rist, better known then and now as Cousin Oliver from The Brady Bunch. The first episode of the miniseries, now known as Galactica 1980, aired on January 27, 1980. It started with Dr. Z informing Adama that, unbeknownst to them, the Cylons had followed Galactica to Earth with intentions of destroying it.
We haven't seen the forces of the Cylon Alliance at 1 billion star miles.
Because they haven't wanted us to know they were there.
What are you saying?
But they simply let us lead them to the last remaining humans in the universe, the people of Earth, in order to destroy them.
Oh. What have I done?
Covert teams of colonial warriors were sent to Earth in hopes of advancing human development. Troy and Dylan are sent to North America, where they interact with intrepid reporter Jamie Hamilton, a replacement for the original series Cassiopeia. The rest of the story pretty much followed Bellisario's original plan, with Xavier traveling back to Nazi Germany hoping to speed up Earth technology so that they would be strong enough to fight the Cylons 4 decades later. With the help of Hamilton, Troy and Dylan managed to stop Xavier and save history. During the miniseries production, ABC decided to commission the full series, but with one major change. Executives decided that they didn't really care for the time travel concept after all, and they also wanted further budget cuts before they would sign off on more episodes. Once again, Bellisario went back to the drawing board. First, producers decided to recast 2 of the roles. Jeremy Brett replaced Richard Lynch's Xavier, and Robbie Rist was replaced as Dr. Z by Patrick Stewart. No, not that Patrick Stewart. Yeah, that one. The change came as a surprise, especially to Rist, who didn't know that he'd been replaced until he saw the new Dr. Z on television. Second, instead of time travel stories, it was decided that the new show would mainly be moved to modern-day Earth and centered around a group of children that were moved planet-side for their own safety and were watched over by Troy and Dylan. Because the kids had been raised in a much higher gravity environment on board Galactica and the other ships of the fleet, once they arrived on Earth, they suddenly had superhuman abilities, including super strength, the ability to jump high and run faster than other humans. Masquerading as a scout troop, the Galactica children became known as the Super Scouts. Yes, it was as bad as it sounds. The Super Scouts concept turned out to be a big turnoff for viewers, and while the first 3 episodes of the season, which had been the 3 episodes of the planned miniseries, had pulled decent ratings, the hokey episodes that resulted from the Super Scout storyline caused those numbers to plunge. The producers scrambled to retool again. In hopes of bringing things back to the original series style and feel, they produced an episode that centered around Starbuck, using flashbacks to explain how, now that Dirk Benedict didn't have the commitments that kept him out of the pilot, Starbuck had managed to be rescued from his previously unknown fate and could return to the colonial fold. But ABC had already made its mind up. Before the next episode could be finished, the network pulled the plug. Galactica 1980 was canceled on May 4th, 1980. Donald Bellisario eventually took the original time travel concept he'd worked up for Galactica 1980 and developed it into a new series called Quantum Leap. And when Battlestar Galactica entered syndication, Galactica 1980s were re-edited with new titles to help pad out the original show's package. But the fans persisted, and Glenn A. Larson never gave up hope. 2 decades later, he teamed up with Star Trek Deep Space Nine producer Ronald Moore to develop yet another Galactica miniseries updated for the new century. And that, in turn, led to a new weekly series developed by Moore, which, thankfully, never included anyone in a Boy Scout uniform.
The great ship Galactica, our home for these many years we've endured the wilderness of space. And now, we near the end of our journey. We have at last found Earth.